If it holds above 73K, if it holds above 73K, then there's no guarantee with the market, but it would suggest, right? It would suggest that the structure of the market remains intact. Because if you look at 2017, you'll note that, it had a pretty similar pullback, right? Where in early 2017, it got a pullback and it ultimately basically tested the 2016 high. So I could envision a scenario where it just simply tests the 2024 high and it still be a market structure that is intact. Even if in another pullback, even if it comes down here to back test this, which I mean is always a possibility, right? I mean, you know, it seems like at some point it will test that, whether it's now or in 8 months, right? I don't know. It seems like at some point it'll probably test it. If it goes that low, then I would probably, unfortunately, I probably would start to operate somewhat deterministically and think that the next move out of that would be a macro lower high.
Let's dive into the key ideas that Ben just laid out and what they could mean going forward. And one of the biggest levels Ben is focusing on is 73K, and that makes sense. If we do get another pullback but Bitcoin holds that level at 73K, it's a strong sign that the bullish market structure is still intact. Not only that, but that kind of retest would line up with what we saw back in 2017. In 2017, price pullback early in the year, respected its previous highs, and then resumed the uptrend. And that's the scenario that the bulls are hoping for now. Healthy consolidation, hold the key level, and then explode higher. But if we break below 73K, especially if we start creeping into the low 60s, things start to look a lot shakier. Now Ben compares that to what happened with QQQs back in 1999, where we had this euphoric rally, followed by a steep drop, a macro lower high, and then a major trend reversal. And that's not the kind of setup you want to see if you're long-term bullish right now. So in that case, we could still get a decent bounce in Q2, but it would likely just be a lower high before further downside in Q3 and Q4. Now the death cross is another big topic here. Now I'll let Ben talk about his thesis about the death cross first, and then at the end, I'll summarize it all for you. But first, guys, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Every bit of engagement helps and keeps this kind of content coming your way. Now let's jump back over to Ben.
But you have to remember that a lot of times when people say sell in May and go away, it's because the markets are already down. And so what ends up happening usually is the markets then rip back up after all the sell in May and go away guys sell, right? I mean, look at 2023. I mean, a lot of people were saying back then, right, sell in May and go away, and then in June the market ripped back up. Okay, even over here. Right, in 2024, the market dropped into late April, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's May, sell in May and go away," and then the market ripped higher in May. So remember that when the death cross occurs, if and when it occurs, there's going to be a lot of headlines about it. But know that a lot of times we get local lows within a few days of that. Okay. Now I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. I guess we could take a closer look and sort of forecast this out. But if we just look here at Bitcoin on the daily time frame, and we load on here the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average, and we just kind of, I don't know, project this out. It's not going to follow that exactly, but let's just assume it does. Interpolation's okay, extrapolation is not, so don't do this at home. But you're looking about, the first or second week of April, right? I mean, I don't know exactly where it's going to fall, and it's going to depend on price action between now and then too. I mean, if the price rips higher, then it's possible the 50-day doesn't even cross the 200-day moving average. But this is something that I would certainly watch here, is that when you get this, if there's another drop in the market, regardless of how low it goes, there will likely be a counter trend rally. Then that rally could resolve to a higher high if we don't really go that much lower, or if it's like a double bottom, or resolve to a lower high if Bitcoin goes into the 60s, right? Especially the low 60s. I could even look the other way if it's like 69K, but if it's like 63K, it's going to be hard to ignore, It'd be hard to ignore that if it comes all the way back down here. And so that's what I'm thinking. And the reason I bring 63K up is because that's exactly what that would correspond to if it were to test that structure, which it probably will at some point in the future. But the hope, it doesn't mean it has to test it immediately. Maybe it comes down, bounces up, and then tests it later on this year. I'm guessing they're going to be talking about the death cross, and if there's a drop in the market, they're going to be talking about the death cross even more. And just recognize that if that occurs, usually there's a low around the time of that death cross, and depending on how low the price is at that time, would sort of give us some insight into the fate of the next rally, whether it's a rally to a new high or just a counter trend rally to a lower high.
When the 50-day moving average crosses below the 200-day, that sounds scary to a lot of traders. But Ben makes a really good point in this video. These events often line up with local bottoms and not tops. We've seen this in both 2019 and 2020. Sell-offs into a death cross that actually marked the beginning of a strong counter-trend rally. So if we get another drop in April and the death cross lines up with it, it might actually be an opportunity, not a reason to panic. Now the real question is how deep that drop might be. If Bitcoin bounces off 76K or 73K, that's something that the bulls can work with. But if we break down to say 63K, it starts to shift the conversation towards longer term weakness. And that would open the door to more of a structure like 2019 or 2000 with the QQQs. So again, this isn't about predicting a single outcome. It's about understanding the structure and being ready for both scenarios. And something I really respect about Ben's approach is that he emphasizes the idea that none of us control the market. Just because we want alt season or we want prices to rip doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And honestly, if the last few years have taught us anything, it's that constantly expecting alt season has been quite a bad choice for most of us. Bitcoin dominance keeps rising, and most alt Bitcoin pairs have been a slow bleed for months and most of them years. So what I'm watching closely right now is, can Bitcoin hold 73K on a retest? Does the death cross lead to another local high and bounce? Or do we drop into the low 60s, which would suggest a macro lower high is forming? It's not about being overly bullish or bearish. It's about staying objective and letting the price structure guide your bias, not emotion. This next move, especially going into April, could really set the tone for the rest of the year. So we got focus up, and I'll keep you guys updated on this channel about how this situation plays out. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so that you don't miss my update. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.